Well, my editing skills are crap, but can the same thing be said for Fantastic Four? Stick around and find out. I don't really know where I'm going with that, but I was just going to count off 1, 2, 3, 4. Get it? And that would be it. All right. Let's talk about Fantastic Four. I'm Peter Franson from Christian Geek Central and Spirit Blade Productions, and this is my uncut review of Fantastic Four. Or is it fantastic? Oh, man. All right. Well, the basic premise you probably know, but young Reed Richards is a genius in elementary school. That much is obvious, but where's the camera? I am currently kind of like on location in California, where the magic of movies is made. No, actually, I'm in a parking garage. I ducked away from the college ministry retreat that my wife and I are helping out with for our church, and but I ducked away so that I could watch the movie and give you this review after 7 hours of driving from Arizona to California today. I want to get this review out, so I'm sorry it is a little bit late, but anyway, so yeah, let's. So I got my iPhone. Obviously, I'm in my car. I hope this doesn't turn out like upside down or something. I don't really know what I'm doing, but you know, that's nothing new. So, so the story, Reed Richards, child genius. You know, he's ready to build a teleporter when he's like in 5th grade, and his teachers and his parents just don't understand, you know, and think that he's full of nonsense and stuff, and yet he's blacking out half of the city while doing this thing in his parents' basement and stuff. Well, eventually, when he's a little bit older in high school, he does get noticed by the Baxter Foundation, which is this super, like, think tank of geniuses, and they bring him on and give him a full scholarship to this school and whatever it is. And they start working on this teleportation technology, which turns out to be interdimensional teleportation technology, but dimensional in the like 1950s sci-fi sense, not in the actual scientific sense, you know, where dimension is like another 3-dimensional space that you go to, as opposed to like an actual additional dimension over like height, width, depth, time, and then, you know, moving on from there. So anyway, and that, you know... Okay, well, anyway, they get the thing to work, and bad things happen as a result. People end up with superpowers. Some of them use them for good, some of them for evil. Conflict. Oh no, let the world go to crap or save it. What do we do? You know, okay, that's your basic premise for this movie. The story is slow. It's about 60 plus minutes of origin, which is a real bummer. I mean, you can sometimes get away with that in a movie where the hero is kind of training and discovering their capabilities over the course of those 60 minutes. But it takes 60 minutes just to get to the event where they first get their abilities in this movie. And then they jarringly after that jump forward in time 1 year and kind of through flashback-y type video clips show them kind of training and using their abilities and stuff. Just the pacing of it is totally off kilter from what you would expect from a movie of this type. And that doesn't mean that it's going to fail because they tried something different, but in this case, I think for me it did, because it was like 60 minutes of just slow build up to this. And one of the problems is that that time that could have been spent in those first 60 minutes building character, understanding motivation and stuff like that, it wasn't. None of these characters, I felt like, spoke and reacted to situations in realistic ways or were, you know, made logical decisions based on the situations they were in, said things that made sense that you and I could relate to, you know, that like maybe we would say in there or think in the situation that they're in. They just weren't behaving, you know, at all like I was going to say rational person, but even an irrational person who doesn't, you know, handle life difficulties in a rational manner, you know, they would still react in a more realistic way than these characters did to the circumstances they found themselves in. And this was very frustrating because, I mean, you could, of course, in a movie like this, excuse me, I had a little notification pop up. Man, come on, cell phone, stop screwing with me. Just let me do this. You know, it's a superhero movie. So you might be saying, well, Peter, of course they're not going to be realistic or whatever. Well, the problem is in this movie, it's it's the visual design of this movie, the costumes, the props, and stuff like that. A lot of it is very grounded and feels very, you know, realistic, for lack of a better word. You know, much more so than, like, say, the way the Avengers looks. You know, a lot of the other Marvel movies look. It just has a more grounded, muted, realistic kind of tone to it. And because of that, the dialogue, which is like just filled with cliches and, you know, illogical, nonsensical, unmotivated reactions of people to situations, it just doesn't fit. I mean, the dialogue sometimes that comes out of the words that comes out of these characters' mouths, you would hear in like an old episode of the Power Rangers, but said with much more drama. You know, enough of this, Doom. You know, that's enough, Doom, you know, stuff like that. But they didn't say it with that kind of drama. So, like, there would be these, like, kind of cheesy lines that I think would have actually worked better if the tone overall of the movie would have been more fun and bright, I guess. And if they would have just pumped up the melodrama, you know, that could potentially work. I mean, there's some moments in the first Matrix movie that are just, like, very kind of traditional superhero-like, and the lines are very, like, okay, that's, you know, very kind of cheesy or whatever. But because they bring such gravitas to the moment, and because there's so much spectacle in those movies, you just kind of accept the melodrama of the whole thing. But it just doesn't, the two don't, yeah, it doesn't fit. So anyway, I don't know how much room I have on my cell phone, so this review is not going to be as long as my normal ones. But I wish that, you know, for a movie like this where you had, it's like a reboot, and the first two were silly. I get why they went with a more serious tone, but I just wish they would have gone the whole way with being serious. What I saw from the trailer was like, oh, cool, they could be treating this kind of like the Man of Steel treated it, as like, this is, yeah, it's a superhero movie, but it's also can just be enjoyed as a sci-fi movie, as like a straight up sci-fi movie that just happens to have a guy who's a superhero in it. They could have gone even further in that direction with this movie and had like a straight up sci-fi movie, and almost like, you know, just snuck in the superhero elements. You know, these people just happen to acquire these fantastical abilities as a result of this sci-fi story that they're involved in. You know, so I would have liked it to have been more of like just a straight sci-fi story. But they were still, I think, trying to, I don't understand the scripting. Like, I want to rent this movie when it comes out, and hopefully, or I don't know if I don't want to have to buy it, but sometimes they don't put the special features on the rental versions of the discs. But I want to know what they were thinking. The writers and the director, what did they think they were doing versus what I actually experienced? Very unusual. Anyway, the visual effects are standard quality, but the occasions that the characters use their visual effects, they never quite cut loose with their powers like I'd like. You know, I feel like there were enough visual effects shots that, like, you guys could have created much more interesting and, like, over the top and just huge uses of these characters' powers. But even though they kind of did those flashbacks showing them getting to know their powers and stuff, they still had lots of visual effects shots where they are just kind of doing these kind of pedestrian type things with their powers, these just kind of normal things, or experimenting and learning how to use them. And I'm like, okay, no, you just showed us in these video clips that they've been training for a year how to use their powers. Every time Johnny Storm flames on, every time Sue Storm puts up a force field, I want it to be because something crazy's going down, you know? Not because they're just kind of still working out their powers and stuff. And anyway, so the visual effects were standard quality. I actually preferred the I don't know if I can't remember now if it was a combination of CG and practical makeup that Michael Chiklis had in his costume in the original Fantastic Four movies. But whatever it was, I preferred that design, particularly of the face, because the face, when human movement or movement of people are talking and stuff like that, that's where CG really betrays itself. And it really did with Ben Grimm, the Thing, in this movie. Whenever his lips would move, I'm just like, I'm friggin' watching a cartoon. It is a very detailed cartoon, but those are cartoon lips that he's talking out of right now. Stop it, notifications! I'm almost done. The performances were all solid in this. So you've got, like, some of these guys you might recognize. Miles Teller, you might know from Whiplash, I think is the name of the movie, and some other like kind of independent films. And he's a fantastic actor in the other stuff I've seen him in. And he had a few scenes in this where I was like, wow, yeah, he's bringing the goods. But it was almost like there were two directors, you know, and like, or there were certain scenes where the director would say, okay, I'd like you to really act in this scene. And then in the other scenes, just like, okay, say the line. All right, we got it. We're moving on. But I mean, then again, the actors had in so many of these other scenes these really shallow, cliche kind of lines. I think they kind of did the best they could with them because the tone of the movie wasn't melodramatic. So I think they were probably just like, okay, I'm just going to deliver this straight, totally straight-faced, no melodrama. I'm just going to try to be realistic and in the moment. But it didn't fit. So I appreciate the effort that they had, and they probably, oh man, it was so weird. I don't know how you could, I don't know, I wish I could get inside the actors' heads and be like, what did you think of this experience of making this movie with the tone so conflicting with the script? Anyway. You might also recognize Michael B. Jordan from one of my favorite recent movies of recent years, Chronicle, which I would highly recommend over and above Fantastic Four. If you haven't seen Chronicle yet, go rent Chronicle. That is a movie about people with superpowers that is awesome. And then you've also got Kate Mara and Jamie Bell and a bunch of other actors that, you know, might have pseudo-familiar faces, and they all just kind of, they blend into the background, you know. The performances are kind of flat, and it's not that they're bad, it's just that they're not, I just don't think they had anything to work with here. Much of anything for these characters. Oh, man. Oh, jeez. Yeah, I just wanted to care. I wanted to know what everyone wanted and what it would mean to them, what it would cost them if they didn't get what they wanted. And I guess you kind of got a sense of that. Like, technically, those plot points, those character points were delivered at one time or another in the story. But, I mean, I didn't feel with them. I didn't feel what Ben Grimm felt about this horrific, you know, state he was in. I didn't feel Franklin Storm's true love for his children. He was definitely an authority figure and very strong, you know, and a nice kind of father figure in that sense. But, I mean, I didn't feel his genuine love and affection for his children, you know. Yeah, just, these characters, there's so little attention paid to them, I felt. Anyway, as far as, like, was there anything of, like, moral or philosophical, you know, significance that, you know, might trigger thought or whatever? This is an example of, you know, I don't, most of the time, if there are, like, kind of bad ideas or interesting ideas or whatever, the kind of like the relevance factor, I would call it, doesn't often affect the quality of a movie, for me. But the quality of a movie can absolutely affect whether or not I think it's going to stimulate thought or worthwhile conversation. I think that this movie, just because you're not feeling for anything for these characters, you don't understand why they're doing what you're doing, you're just kind of like watching events happen one after the other as we move and the timeline progresses. I was so bored. There was nothing. I mean, there was probably some little tidbits, maybe something here about like evolution or whatever. But I mean, I don't want to talk about this movie. I don't want to think about this movie. I'm so sad. I want to forget about this movie, and I want everyone else to forget about this movie, so that we can get around to another reboot. Isn't that sad? That's so sad for me to be coming away and saying, yes, Rise of the Silver Surfer was a terrible movie. I'm not going to say otherwise. But the original Fantastic Four, I enjoyed more than this one. Oh, that kills me to say that. Kills me. Anyway, it's rated PG-13. If I were a time traveler going back in time, because I have no idea what your preferences are compared to mine, so I'll just talk to myself as a time traveler. Say, Peter, skip it. Skip it. Don't even watch the first 15 minutes, because you'll think to yourself, well, maybe it gets better. Maybe things start making more sense. Maybe the world and people's reactions to their situations will start making more sense. You know, maybe, seeing this kid who's clearly a genius, but no one notices, maybe that's the only completely nonsensical thing that's going to happen. Maybe the rest of the world will make sense. No, don't do that. Don't even waste your time watching it for free. You got stuff to do. You got other stuff to do. I don't know what, but anything better than watching Fantastic Four, probably. At least with a truly bad, cheesy, terrible movie, you could talk about and enjoy talking about how terrible it was. This one was just bad in a way that is like, this was so boring and blasé and forgettable, and oh, I'm so sad. Anyway, so hopefully I've spared you the experience of seeing this movie. If not, maybe you enjoyed it. I would love to get your thoughts. I hope you did enjoy it if you were wanting a good Fantastic Four movie. I'm not a huge Marvel fan, but I'm always game for a good superhero movie, definitely, or just a sci-fi movie, and I was hoping for at least one of those to be the case here, but it wasn't for me. Anyway, I'd love to get your thoughts in the comments below, and then I hope you'll stop by ChristianGeekCentral.com. Where's my sign? There we go. Boom! And join us there as we continue to geek out and seek the truth. All right, I gotta go find my campground again.